us about the fullback situation.
Tell us about the fullback. It is by far the easiest question that has ever been asked out of the gate. It's usually quarterback or DB related, but the fullback position is very, very empty because we've just lost an incredible player in Kiro Small. Kiro Small is probably, I've had two fullbacks drafted in my career, and in my opinion, Kiro's better than both of those guys. And so we've got a tremendous void there. We got a kid by the name of Cody Walker who has popped in there and doing some really good things. Chris Jones from the Queen, right nearby here, is doing a really nice job. He's probably a kid that can give us something in the fall, but he's probably a ways away, just development-wise. You know, he has got a little bit of ways to go. We do have a freshman coming in that we're excited about. We may switch the defensive end over to try and get us some short yardage stuff, but the flip side of the fullback, the tailback position is extremely loaded. And sometimes if you got really good tailbacks, you can get away with not such a great fullback, and that's what we're going to kind of live through, I think, a little bit this year. Two other guys that you'll see line up at the fullback position, Adam Bolsky, who's actually from Longview, Texas, is a good player and I think very, very capable. And then AJ Derby, our newest tight end. He was handing the ball off 2 weeks ago, and now he's playing fullback. Can't figure out where the last half inch of his neck has gone to, but he's looked pretty good at it. Yes? Are we a better team? It's a great question. We are a better team today than we were a year ago. There's no doubt in my mind. I think that for us to, again, to move forward, the key element is just take every day for what it is, and keep getting ourselves better. Yes?
With your style of play, which is not the Trino style, of course, and you recruiting or getting the Alabama recruiter that will definitely help the style that you're wanting, how important is patience for our community, our fans, for you?
Question is, as I recruit this type of players that we'll bring into our program, how important is patience from this room? You know what, I mean this with all due respect. Fans are entitled to do whatever you want to do and say and voice, and I think that you'll have a lot better relationship with your wife and your children and the people around you if you chill a little bit and not get so aggravated, but that's just me. I'm gonna, to put things in perspective, I always, and I mean this out of the utmost respect to everyone in the room. You know, I grew up in an environment, I grew up in a two-parent home, I grew up in a Christian environment, I grew up in a world where you respect your elders, and I grew up in a world where it's always good to get out of your comfort zone and listen to other people's opinions. I came here to do a job. I left a very, very, very comfortable situation because I wanted a challenge. And that has not changed. I am more convinced today than I was a year ago at this time that when we begin to have success, it'll become very, very quickly and very, very consistently after that. But how long that takes is a little bit of a work in progress. And I mean it, relax and enjoy it. For those of you who ain't got season tickets, get them, because when we get them going, they ain't going to be around. And I think the part that's really fun is no one really sees that because it's such a subtle way of doing things. It's not a flashy thing. It's a way that I believe takes time. You know, I remember growing up, my dad gave me one of the first responsibilities he ever gave my brother and I when he wasn't around was to build a fence. And I remember this like it was yesterday. I was in 7th grade, you know, and he was a freshman in high school, and he turned it over to us to build a fence. And it may not sound like a lot, but we had to dig the holes, we had to plant the poles, we had to put the fence, we had to take the horseshoe nails and put them on and build this fence. Well, when you're in 7th grade and you'd rather go fishing, instead of putting the 6 horseshoe nails he talked about, I just put one on the top and one on the bottom. And then all of a sudden I'm like, well, if I just put one on the top, it looks all right. What the hell's going to be the difference? So the last half, we just had one horseshoe nail instead of the 6 my dad said. We came down on a Sunday and we got hogs everywhere. It was my fence that I so appropriately built, and I decided to skip a step instead of doing it the way that he told me to. And I learned very early on in life, it's better to build things the right way the first time and not skip a step than to have to go back and repeat it. Because in the world of college football, if I don't get it right the first time, I ain't gonna get another chance. So I'm gonna build that fence the right way no matter how long it takes, and it'll be good when it's done. That's what I know.
really good walk-on offensive linemen. Some of them, I mean, there was an All-American, 3 All-Conferences, 2 guys were drafted, 1 guy actually played in pros, just walk-ons. So, and if I'm not mistaken, were you not a walk-on yourself?
Yes, sir.
Okay, but about the walk-ons, for the most part, do you have to go get the boys, tell them you're interested in them, or do they just surprise you and say, hey, I'm here, I want to try out?
The question is walk-ons, specifically at the University of Arkansas. One of the things that really intrigued me during the process of evaluating to take this job or not was I was coming to a very similar situation. When I was at Wisconsin, there was no other BCS level team. We had the Packers, but that was about it. There wasn't anybody on our level. And in Arkansas, I know we got Arkansas State and all that goes into it, but they're not at the BCS level as far as the way they're recognized. So I knew I was walking into a situation that you probably would have the ability to get very, very high quality walk-ons. One of the things that also jumped out to me is because of the way Arkansas has developed itself is if you have a bordering state and you have a certain GPA and test score, you're allowed to come to the University of Arkansas even though you're from Texas and receive in-state tuition. So there's a huge market of kids that could be walk-ons. We have to go out and actively recruit them. When I first came here, we had a walk-on policy that was very anti-walk-on. It's just something that coach didn't believe in. I myself, like you said, was a walk-on, so I know how quickly bodies can change. I think in the walk-on department, the words undersized, under-recruited, and undeveloped are really, really good words because all 3 of them can be changed. I was a 183-pound outside linebacker when I first went to school. When I signed with the Seattle Seahawks, I had an unbelievable NFL career. It was 6 days with the Seahawks. But when I signed with the Seahawks, I weighed 284 pounds. So I put on almost 100 pounds. Unfortunately, I kept going in the same direction. But it became very apparent to me that there was a unique niche. I've rewarded already 8 walk-ons since I've been the head coach there. A.J. Derby, for instance, is a walk-on quarterback that I switched to tight end. He's unbelievable. I mean, he is unbelievable. He is pushing Hunter Henry for the starting tight end position. I mean, it's just, and he's a kid that I identified. Now, it helped that I played football with his dad, and he turned down some other people, but he knew I would give him an opportunity. For instance, when I first got there, the players dressed in one room, the walk-ons dressed in another locker room. We eliminated that. Walk-ons only had received 2 tickets for home games for their family when they were entitled to 4 or 6. Just stupid stuff that made no sense. So I believe this, walk-ons can be erasers, you know, because every time that 4-star or that 5-star doesn't quite turn out to be the football god that everybody thought he was going to be, all of a sudden there's this walk-on ready to bite his ankles, you know, and usually the good things result. So we're building that program very, very well. Yes, way in the back. Absolutely. Talk about the football center and how it's affected recruiting. We moved into our new football complex, the Fred Smith Football Center, literally about 48 hours before we started fall camp. So we were kind of moving into the facility, didn't get a huge amount of adjustment time, but the part that really became clear was in recruiting how much of an effect it had. We were in a building that was so outdated and probably, if not the worst, one of the top 2 or 3 worst facilities in the entire SEC. And that needed to change, and thankfully it did. The part that's been great for our players is there's just a little bit of pride now in the way they take care of the facility, the things that are honored, the people that we can recognize on the walls, all that good stuff. The final piece is underway right now, which is a part that we really need to have the finishing touch. Players and 18-year-olds, they really like buildings, you know, they like flashiness, they like certain things, but the thing that parents love is academics. And when you have a young man come on campus with his mom and dad, and they're trying to decide between us and Texas, or us and Auburn, or us and Alabama, our academic facility is so far beyond and so far behind what everyone else has, that's the next piece of the puzzle. That'll be started in about 1.5 years, and that's the huge part that we're really just missing right now at this point. So, you know, as a coach, I know we all talk about, you know, making a difference in their lives and getting them an academic support. That's truly coming down the pike and something that needs to be supported big time. One more easy question right here.
Coach,
yes.
why
Why the SEC? You were very successful at the Big Ten and dominated the Big Ten. Why the SEC?
Why the SEC? Question is, why the SEC for me personally? I'd always, I would say I admired the SEC from afar. You know, people always get on me a little bit. They're like, man, Coach, you just ripped the SEC when you're Big Ten. I said, well, that's because I worked in the Big Ten. You know, a media guy, this ABC guy goes, how could you say that? I go, how many times do you brag on CBS, my friend? How often do you brag on ABC and NBC? You know, so I'm in the Big Ten now because I want to be here. I tell you, it started, it was kind of funny. Tommy Tuberville, a couple of you guys might remember him, was the head coach at Auburn. And I was the defensive coordinator at the University of Wisconsin, and I thought I was, you know, I grew up with nothing. You know, I didn't grow up with much. And I remember when I became the defensive coordinator, they're going to pay me $175,000. And I'm like, Jesus. I'm like a millionaire. I'm like, psyched. And I get done with that season, and we were the #1 defense in the country that year. I was the defensive coordinator for most of it. And Tubby, I was at Wisconsin, and he takes me to dinner, and he's like, hey, I want you to become my defensive coordinator. He goes, what's Coach Alvarez paying? I said, $175,000. He goes, I'll give you $350,000, and I'll give you a 2-year contract. I'm like, hey, I appreciate it, but that's not for me. You know, I moved there. I want to be closer to my family. I want to finish this thing out and do some good things. I hadn't been promised a head coaching job. He said, okay. He goes, I'll give you $375,000 and I'll give you a 4-year contract. I said, okay, now I got to talk to you for a minute. And what became apparent to me was that they had the ability to pay assistant coaches. They had the ability to pay people that our league, my league in the Big Ten wasn't doing. So when I became involved in this job, there was really 3 things that really intrigued me. The first was Jeff Long gave me a promise that he was going to take my assistant coach's salary pool from $1.6 million to $3.2, which allowed me to bring along some really good coaches, some really good people, and hire really good coaches. The second part that was probably the most intriguing to me was the SEC itself. You guys might have heard of a quarterback by the name of Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson just won the Super Bowl. He was probably one of the most intriguing players in the NFL. When I had Russell, we lost 2 games on a Hail Mary when he wasn't even on the field, and we weren't even talked about in the world of college football as one of the best elite teams. And we could play anybody and beat anybody. But the most intriguing thing was my wife found out there was actually 3 Chick-fil-A's in Fayetteville. And we were going to be a Nike school. That made the decision very, very easy. As a newly married man, I knew if I could get her 3 Chick-fil-A's and a Nike school, we were in business. So a lot of people don't know that one, but that's a true fact. So there's a lot of reasons. But the reason that the SEC is intriguing to me is because next year we go to a 14 playoff. And in the world of college football, if you're in the SEC and if you're in that championship game, you're going to be in that playoff. And if you're in that playoff, you have a chance to win a title. And that's the #1 reason I'm here. So thank you very much. Go Hawks. Appreciate it.
Coach B, thank you. All right, we're going to give a few things away, and then we're going to give that ticket auction back there about another 10 minutes. So let's give a couple of things away real quick, Dana.